Nicole. I'm here today on the blog to show you how you can create lots of texture using some stamps from our friends at Stampin' Up. So today I have these artisan texture stamps as well as several rainbow colors of ink pads from Stampin' Up. And that's pretty much most of what I'm going to use to create my page. I have a couple photos here chosen that I want to do, so I'm going to mark them off on my white cardstock background. And then I have this really large letter here, word title that I'm going to use as a focal point. And then I really want to let the stamps do kind of most of the work on this project. So I forgot to mark off a part of the word. I want to make sure I mark off where my word is going to line up, just so I can keep that in mind while I'm doing my stamping. So I'm going to start off on one side of the page with these really pretty Stampin' Up inks. I've used a rainbow of colors of them. There's so many colors, like even the names are beautiful, like Calypso Coral is this one here. So I'm going to stamp on one side of the page with that coral color. It's like a reddish color. And then on the end, I'm going to do the purple. And then I'm going to work my way through the rainbow from left to right, just getting all the different colors in with that same stamp. Now I am keeping this stamp in the same direction. You could definitely do the same thing by changing the angle and turning it a little bit. But I really wanted to start off all in the same direction, and then I'm going to add some texture using some other stamps. So you can see I have that nice little rainbow built across my page, and I also have all my ink pads out in that same rainbow order, so I have a bit of a reference point. And then I'm going to grab a second stamp here from that same stamp set, and in different darker colors I'm going to stamp over top. So on that blue, you can see I chose a different blue, and I just went over top, and I'm using that other stamp that has a bit of a smaller splash, I guess you could say, and I'm just adding a darker shade over top of each. So I know I'm going to have my word create here, and I know I'm going to have my two photos, and so now I want to add even more texture with that stamp. So right now I have two different stamps that I've layered together, and now I'm going to take a third. So this one here is like a smaller little, almost like a bubble kind of stamp, and so I'm going to take all those colors that, yes, I've closed out, that I probably could have left open again, in that same order, and I'm just going to make that whole area that I've stamped longer. So instead of it being one small tiny stamped section, I'm kind of just using that smaller stamp to expand it, and I'm overlapping some of the colors a little bit just to add a little bit more depth as I go through from left to right on my page. So again, I'm just going to twist my stamp this time, making my little bubbles longer and shorter as I go across to the left side of the page. And of course, as I go along, I'm using just a wipe to clean off my stamp in between the colors so as not to get everything muddled and messy. Alright, so I have that smaller stamp done, and now I still want more texture. So although it's looking pretty good, now I'm going to take another stamp from that same set, and I'm going to use some different inks here in darker shades, a dark plum color over top of that purple, just to add a little bit more texture. So I'm just grabbing some smaller ink pads from my stash, finding some colors that are very similar but just a little bit darker that I can add in and layer over top. So this is kind of a nice, as you can see there on my scratch pad, this is a nice linear stamp that I'm using just to add that same texture. And I'm actually going to go over it's a little bit darker, these ink colors, but very, very slight. It's just so you get enough tone on tone kind of contrast to have a little bit of a difference. Okay, so now I'm going to keep on moving. I decided that everything was pretty white still, and I wanted to add a little just touch of black to my page. Very small tiny ink droplets here with some black ink, and a few larger ones just to look a little bit more messy. And I'm going to let those dry as I work through the rest of my project. I did pull out a whole bunch of pattern papers to use on my project from some 6x6 paper pads. You see I chose a rainbow of colors as well, but I'm actually just going to stick to some of the more neutral colors that I've chosen, like this gray, and then I'm going to use this really bold black and white stripe by Crate Paper just to kind of background my photo. And then I ended up deciding not to use any of that pattern paper and really just let the stamps be the highlight of the show. So I'm going to stick my photo down. Both of them actually. I'm going to use the one photo is just flat with the tape runner, and the second one I'm going to use foam adhesive in behind. And so because of that, I'm going to add foam adhesive in behind my title as well, and just kind of pop that up so it's at that same level. So I'm just going to trim this down. This is from Scrapbook Adhesive by 3L. I really like these rolls of adhesive because you can trim them down to the size that you want. So if you need a skinnier piece, you can cut a little skinnier piece, or something fatter, you can do that too. And so I'm just going to layer that create word just over top of my stamp images as well as my photos. So now I'm going to play around, and this is where I kind of think I'm going to use pattern paper, but I end up not using any. I really think that I had enough texture going on with the stamps that you can't really tell that it's not pattern paper at first. It takes you a minute because you have all the different layers of stamps. Thought about using my fringe scissors and tucking things in, and then I realized, you know what, that I don't really need that. So I'm just going to keep on going with what I have and building texture using embellishments and more stamped images. So I'm going to pull out my purple again. As I have things laid down on my page, I'm losing a little bit of the purple there on the right. So I'm going to fill that in a little bit. Same with that coral over on the left-hand side. And you can notice I'm stamping off onto the background of my scratch pad there. It's the perfect way to just kind of get the little bits that you want, but not the whole stamped images in your background. So don't be afraid to use tiny little bits. And then I'm just going to add a few more little black droplets because I lost a little bit of that as well when I put things down onto my project. So now it's kind of the fun stuff. Now that we have all the pretty stamping done, I'm just going to grab some embellishments out of my stash. I have this really great clip here from Vicky Boutin. I have this really fun tag from my friends at Jelly Bean Soup. I love these little notebook tags. I'm just going to trim it down so it's a little bit smaller and will fit onto my photo a bit better. And clip it on there with that little metal clip. And now I'm trying to decide what else I want to do. And then I found this other stamp set I have here in my stash as well. And it has some really cool watercolor effect stamps. So I'm going to grab the circle one here. This is called the Waterfront stamp set. I'm just going to grab the simple little watercolored circle there. And as you can see, I'm just going through across my rows of color and adding just a few little larger circles just to kind of get a bit of a dimensional texture just from those exact same colors, and kind of creating things a little bit longer onto my project, kind of moving that stamped from that one smaller area and just broadening it out a little with those circles. So I'm just going to clean that off really quick too and put that away. And I'm really loving that big gold word. It's pretty on the page. So I want to continue the sparkle, so I'm going to grab a few sequins here from Doodlebug. And I'm going to use some glue dots here and just stick those down in amongst those circles that I have stamped. And they're really pretty. So there's a rainbow of colors, as you can see. And you get quite a few in these tiny little jars. Even though they're small, you get quite a bit in there. There's probably thousands in each little vial. And because there's a rainbow, you have a rainbow of colors. So I'm just going to work across from left to right with all the different colors of sequins that I have, and just kind of to get some of that same color into my page, but in a different textural element. And so that's why these flat sequins are kind of nice for that purpose. And using a glue dot to add them on the page makes it really quick and easy. Not a lot of filling around. I like to use a little paper piercer here, as you can see, to kind of place that sequin down, and then it allows you to pick it up, that glue dot, and then place it onto your project wherever you want to put it. So I'll add a few little purple bits here to get some of that pretty purpleness in, and that'll be it for my sequins. And I feel like I need a lot. I know it's hard to tell because there is a white background, but I'm just going a little bit larger with my embellishments now. So normally I start with the larger ones and work my way down, but in this case I started with those small sequins, and now I want to fill in with some larger wood buttons here. So these are from Pink Fresh Studio. So I'm just going to add a few in around that same word create. And then I'm digging deep into my stash. I found these really old Heidi Swapp labels, and they are like a sticky note. And so I'm going to add that in behind my photo. And then I'm going to grab a Simple Stories clear sticker. And these are really great to just stick right onto photos or onto white backgrounds. So I thought about adding one at the top here of my one photo. I opted to add one here onto that other photo on the bottom right corner, and then going to take a heart here, and I'm actually going to cover that hole up in that notebook card that's on my photo. Perfect way to fill in that little area. So all the little bits you kind of have hanging around your stash are really great to add simple little layers to your project. I have some fun puffy stickers here from Paige Evans and pink paisley. So I'm going to add, again, I'm just taking smaller little embellishments that I can tuck in around my stamped area that match my color scheme. And it's really not hard once you start digging through your items. I have these words are really great. You can always use these on any sort of project. So some words by Vicki Boutin. And then I'm just going to move that flower. I would like it better a little bit farther down. And a little bit of washi tape. So this is Dear Lizzie washi. I'm just going to rip a strip here and add that as a nice layer. And that is really it. You can see all the different textures those stamps creates a nice border right across that project. When you look at it, you think it's pattern paper, that it's printed like that. Really easy to